I want to thank the witnesses for all of their testimony. There's so many pieces to this puzzle, the outer ring, Ms. Harrington, and the work that you've done there. My colleague, Congresswoman McSally, went into the Russia issue in some detail. Just one additional question on that. What efforts, if any, are being made to re-engage with Russia on this issue?
Thank you for that question. We have never completely disengaged from Russia, particularly in the nonproliferation, disarmament, threat reduction sphere. We have kept some of that, that interaction alive, mostly through technical exchanges, best practices exchanges, because if the geopolitics ever permit, we, of course, would want to be working with Russia again, not only in Russia, but perhaps teaming with Russia to work in other challenging places of the world. We are the two big players in the nuclear world.
Well, having said that, it appears as though the engagement is at a very low level. That is not terribly active. Is that the case?
It is at a marginal level right now, yes.
What steps are being undertaken to enhance the engagement? Like, when's your next trip to Russia?
I have not been to Russia in a while, but we have staff on the ground in Russia literally every week. So it is not that we're not present.
This issue of engagement with Russia goes way beyond this particular set of concerns. And it seems to me that it is in the interest of Russia and the United States to enhance our engagement at every level, parliamentarian, military, nuclear, and the rest. And so I would encourage you to get on the airplane. Next question, Mr. Owens. Maybe this goes beyond you to Dr. Brashear also. And that has to do with the Secure Freight Initiative, which was at one point in 6 ports and now appears to be in only 1 port. Could you describe that situation and why it has gone from 6 to 1, and should it be more than just the port in Pakistan?
Yes, absolutely. Back in 2006, 2007, we began to explore the idea of 100% scanning, where you would have the radiation screening as well as the X-ray screening before the container was put on the ship. We piloted this in 6 locations. We were in Qasim, Pakistan. We were in a terminal in South Korea, a terminal in Hong Kong, Puerto Cortez, Honduras, Salalah, Oman, and in Southampton in the UK. Lots of different challenges that came up, from the diplomatic to having our personnel overseas. There was environmental issues. There was the biggest, which was the throughput of the cargo and the impact that having 100% X-raying would take place. The way these 2 systems work, the passive scanning of radiation is quite simple. The container passes through. If there's any radiation emitting, the technology will detect that. The challenge becomes with the X-raying of the cargo, because that is a very manual process using the different technologies. An operator has to do different things to try to see if there's a threat, and that will slow down the process of the cargo flowing through the ports. When you have gate traffic, and some of these ports we piloted in, it was all gate traffic, so the cargo all arrived at an entry gate in. You can set up a suite of technology that will allow you to perform 100% scanning, realizing there will be some impact. However, in most of your largest container ports around the world, it's transshipment ports. You have ship-to-ship, barge-to-ship, rail-to-ship, which presents a whole other challenge in terms of the flow of the cargo. So after 4 years of testing this, we documented all of the different challenges, again, along the diplomatic, the operational, the impact, the limitations to the technology, and we decided that we would continue in the places that offer the greatest strategic benefit, that being Qasim, Pakistan. 68,000 containers last year that came out of Qasim. Every one of those was scanned for radiation, and an X-ray was performed, the data being sent to our National Targeting Center here in Virginia, where a U.S. CBP officer makes that go, no-go decision if that cargo is loaded on the vessel. In the last year, we've also expanded that same operation to Port Aqaba in Jordan for obvious reasons. So that is the approach that we're taking. Where can 100% scanning add the greatest value to enhance our overall security overseas?
And that takes us to yesterday's hearing on the classified
yes, sir.
Piece of it. Good. A question to all of you, and that is resources, as in money. And I'd like all of you to address this issue of funding, which is our problem. Do you have adequate funding to carry out the tasks that you have been assigned? Let's start with the Coast Guard. Pardon?
Thank you. As you know, the
understand.
Coast Guard
I'm asking
participates
you.
in this mission set from a layered approach. And as you go from the overseas international arena into the offshore, the approaches in the transit zone, and you know we're engaged in a major recapitalization of some of our aging cutter fleet, designed to deploy exactly into those approaches, and thinking specifically of the offshore patrol
I don't
cutter.
need to hear all the tasks of the Coast Guard. The question was, do you have adequate funding for the specific task that we're discussing today?
We are doing everything that we can within the mission zone with the resources that we have today.
While you danced around the answer, the answer is not appreciated. Either you have adequate funding or you do not. If you do not, we need to know. I mean, that's our job. It's our job to provide the funding necessary to protect America, and your job is to carry it out. And right now, your job is to answer the question, do you have adequate funding to carry out this specific task?
We have adequate funding to carry out the task
Very
that we
good.
presented as Coast Guard.
Yes, sir. We also apply the resources we have, and in DNDO, we apply them using a risk-based strategy across all areas, and we support the President's budget submission.
And we have a workload staffing model that identifies the resources that we need, and the resource staffing model shows that we are 2,107 officers below what we need to carry out the resources. About 500 of those are directed towards seaports. So on the personnel side, we do have a model that has been validated by independent groups that show we need additional resources, about 500 for the seaports. Also concerned about the aging technology that we have in our ports of entry as well.
Thank you.
We have adequate funding for the mission requirements, but I would point out that affecting the budget of one piece of this layered defense affects how everybody is able to implement, because this is really that integrated. So if Coast Guard or Customs and Border Patrol, or particularly DNDO, is affected in the budget world, then that has an impact on our ability to execute. Also, I don't want to get into this. It's painful for Congress as it is for us, but CRs are not a good way to plan and execute program.
Thank you. I yield.
Thank you. The chair now recognizes Mr. Gibbs for Ohio.